Friends, thank you for being here today. What if I told you that on February 11th, 2026, the Attorney General of the United States spent 5 hours in a congressional hearing room calling elected officials washed-up loser lawyers and accusing them of having Trump derangement syndrome, while survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crime sat directly behind her, waiting for answers about why their abusers' co-conspirators remain free? And what if I told you that this spectacle represents not just the personal breakdown of America as chief law enforcement officer, but the systematic collapse of institutional accountability within the Department of Justice? PAM Bondi's testimony before the House Judiciary Committee was supposed to be a routine oversight hearing. Instead, it became a masterclass in how elite protection networks defend themselves when confronted with evidence of their failures. For over 5 hours, members of Congress demanded answers about the Justice Department's handling of Jeffrey Epstein files, the protection of powerful figures whose names were improperly redacted, and the complete absence of new prosecutions, despite millions of pages of evidence documenting a decades-long sex trafficking operation. Bondi's response was not to provide accountability or transparency. Instead, she launched personal attacks against lawmakers, deflected every substantive question, and demonstrated complete contempt for congressional oversight. When Democratic Representative Pramila Jayapal asked Epstein survivors in the hearing room to stand and requested that Bondi apologize for the Justice Department's failure to protect their identities in released documents, Bondi refused and accused Jayapal of theatrics and attempting to drag her into the gutter. The visual symbolism was devastating. Behind Bondi sat women who had been trafficked and abused as children by Jeffrey Epstein and his network of powerful accomplices. In front of her sat members of Congress demanding to know why none of those accomplices have been prosecuted. Bondi's response was to insult the lawmakers while ignoring the survivors entirely. The substantive failures that prompted the hearing are more damaging to institutional credibility than Bondi's personal conduct. Since taking office, the Trump Justice Department has released millions of pages of Epstein-related documents. But these releases have been marked by two critical failures that reveal the systematic protection of powerful individuals. First, the department has repeatedly failed to properly redact the names of Epstein as victims, while simultaneously over-redacting information that could identify his co-conspirators. Survivors have had their personal information, including addresses and phone numbers, exposed in public documents, while billionaires and political figures have had their names blacked out even when they appear in FBI lists of potential co-conspirators. Second, despite overwhelming documentary evidence of a vast criminal network, the Justice Department has initiated 0 new prosecutions and 0 new investigations into Epstein's associates. When Representative Jerry Nadler asked Bondi directly how many of Epstein's co-conspirators she had indicted, she provided no answer. When he asked how many she was investigating, she again provided no response. The hearing revealed that even Republican lawmakers have lost confidence in Bondi's handling of the case. Representative Thomas Massie, who co-authored the legislation requiring the release of Epstein files, accused the Justice Department of a massive failure and demanded to know why billionaire Leslie Wexner's name was initially redacted from an FBI document listing potential co-conspirators. Bondi's response was to call Massie a failed politician with Trump derangement syndrome. This exchange is particularly significant because it demonstrates that the protection of Epstein's network transcends partisan politics. Massie is a conservative Republican who has been one of Trump's most loyal supporters, yet even he cannot accept the Justice Department's obvious efforts to shield powerful figures from accountability. When Bondi attacked him with the same talking points she used against Democrats, it revealed that her strategy is not to defend the department's work, but to discredit anyone who questions it. The institutional implications of this hearing extend far beyond the Epstein case. What we witnessed was the complete breakdown of the relationship between the Justice Department and congressional oversight. In previous administrations, even during periods of intense political conflict, attorneys general maintained basic respect for their constitutional obligation to answer lawmakers' questions. Bondi instead treated the hearing as an opportunity to campaign for her boss while attacking his critics. The most troubling aspect of Bondi's performance was her apparent belief that loyalty to Donald Trump supersedes her responsibilities as Attorney General. Throughout the hearing, she repeatedly praised Trump as the greatest president in American history, and suggested that questioning the Justice Department's performance was equivalent to attacking the president personally. This conflation of personal loyalty with institutional duty represents a fundamental corruption of the rule of law. When Representative Ted Lieu pointed to evidence in the Epstein files and suggested it contradicted Bondi's claims about Trump's innocence, she responded by accusing him of lying under oath and demanding he resign. This response reveals someone who views the Justice Department not as an independent institution serving the American people, but as a personal protection service for Donald Trump. The hearing also exposed the Justice Department's complete abandonment of crime victims. Marina Lacerda, an Epstein survivor who attended the hearing, told reporters afterward that Bondi has been unwilling to help survivors. and accused the department of trying to intimidate us into silence. When survivors raised their hands to indicate they had not been allowed to meet with Justice Department officials under BONDI's leadership, she refused to acknowledge their presence. This treatment of crime victims by America's chief law enforcement officer represents a moral failure that undermines the department's basic legitimacy. The Justice Department exists to protect victims and prosecute criminals. When the Attorney General refuses to meet with victims while protecting their abusers' accomplices, the institution has lost its fundamental purpose. The international implications are equally serious. Foreign law enforcement agencies that cooperate with the United States in criminal investigations are watching an American Attorney General demonstrate complete contempt for accountability and transparency. When allied nations see the Justice Department protecting wealthy criminals while attacking lawmakers who demand justice, it becomes impossible to maintain the international partnerships that are essential for combating transnational crime. The broader pattern revealed by BONDI's performance connects to systematic failures across federal law enforcement agencies. Just as Immigration and Customs Enforcement operates without accountability after killing American citizens, the Justice Department operates without accountability while protecting Jeffrey Epstein's network. The common thread is the Trump administration's belief that federal agencies should serve political interests rather than constitutional principles. Conservative voices have recognized the damage BONDI's performance caused. Podcaster Eric Erickson said she should be fired or resign after she responded to child sex trafficking questions by touting Trump as economic numbers. Even Trump supporters like Joe Rogan have criticized the administration's Epstein handling, calling it terrible for Trump. These criticisms from Trump's supporters reveal how completely BONDI failed to defend Justice Department credibility. When conservative media personalities who helped Trump win are calling for the Attorney General's resignation, the political strategy of attacking critics while ignoring substance has backfired spectacularly. The hearing revealed operational failures demonstrating institutional incompetence beyond political considerations. Bondi admitted she only learned about Ghislaine Maxwell's transfer from low security, Florida prison to minimum security, Texas prison camp after it occurred. This suggests either the Attorney General is not informed about decisions involving the most high-profile federal prisoner, or she is lying to avoid responsibility. The systematic nature of these failures indicates they are not accidental mistakes, but deliberate policy choices. The Justice Department has the resources and authority to properly redact documents, investigate crimes, and prosecute criminals. When it consistently fails to protect victims while shielding perpetrators, this represents intentional institutional corruption rather than operational incompetence. The hearing revealed specific examples of systematic protection. When lawmakers asked about Leslie Wexner's redacted name from FBI co-conspirator lists, Bondi claimed the department corrected this within 40 minutes of notification. Representative Massey responded, "This only occurred because of him catching you red-handed." This demonstrates proper disclosure only happens when congressional oversight forces it, not as standard practice. The broader implications for federal law enforcement credibility are profound. If the Justice Department cannot be trusted to properly investigate the most documented criminal network in recent American history, how can it be trusted to handle any investigation? When the Attorney General demonstrates contempt for congressional oversight while protecting wealthy criminals, every prosecution conducted under her authority becomes suspect. The international ramifications extend beyond law enforcement cooperation to fundamental questions about American institutional integrity. Foreign governments observing an Attorney General who treats crime victims with contempt while shielding their abusers undermines American credibility in international efforts to combat human trafficking and political corruption. The mathematical certainty of additional revelations should concern anyone believing in equal justice. The Justice Department possesses thousands of hours of surveillance footage, financial records, and testimonial evidence documenting Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network. Every day, without new prosecutions, allows co-conspirators to destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses, and escape accountability. The institutional precedent set by Bondi's performance creates dangerous expectations for future attorneys general. If insulting lawmakers becomes acceptable behavior for America's chief law enforcement officer, then constitutional executive accountability has been permanently damaged. The hearing exposed complete breakdown of professional standards within Justice Department leadership. Bondi's decision to call Representative Jamie Raskin a washed-up loser lawyer represents unprofessional conduct that would result in disciplinary action for any other federal employee. The transformation of the Justice Department from independent law enforcement into partisan political operation has profound implications for democratic governance. When the Attorney General demonstrates primary loyalty to Donald Trump rather than constitutional principles, this credibility is destroyed. The congressional response to Bondi's performance indicates legislative oversight of the Justice Department has effectively collapsed. When the Attorney General can spend 5 hours insulting lawmakers while refusing to answer substantive questions, constitutional balance between executive and legislative power has been eliminated. Congress has authority to compel testimony, hold officials in contempt, and defund agencies that refuse oversight compliance. Bondi's performance was essentially a dare to Congress to use those powers. The ultimate test of American democratic institutions will be whether Congress responds to this challenge or accepts that executive agencies can operate beyond legislative accountability. If Bondi can insult Congress while protecting child traffickers without consequences, then separation of powers defining American constitutional government has been eliminated. Friends, what we witnessed was not just personal failure of one official, but systematic breakdown of institutional accountability defining American law enforcement for generations. When the Attorney General treats crime victims with contempt while protecting their abusers, when she attacks lawmakers demanding justice while praising politicians enabling corruption, she demonstrates the Justice Department has abandoned its constitutional mission. The survivors who sat behind Pam Bondi deserved answers about why their traffickers remained free. Instead, they got a performance designed to protect the powerful while silencing the powerless. That performance revealed everything Americans need to know about how justice operates when institutions serve elite interests rather than constitutional principles. The choice facing Congress and the American people is whether to accept that the Justice Department has become personal protection service for political elites or demand the accountability that democratic governance requires. The survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes are still waiting for justice. Their wait will continue until American institutions serve the people rather than the powerful.